Take this conversation forward. I'm joined by political analyst Levy Ndou for that conversation. Mr. Ndou, thank you so much for your time. So we are in the process now of finding out who the members of parliament believe is best suited to lead them as the head of the legislative arm of government. And there are two names on that ballot paper that they are voting upon. Just watch your whole sense of this shake-up that is taking place in parliament. Because in as much as, we can debate whether or not President Ramaphosa's reshuffle represented any significant shake-up, but as far as parliament is concerned, it is a big shake-up, isn't it?
Thulasizwe, good afternoon. Good afternoon to the viewers at home. Yes, indeed, it's a big shake-up. And also at the same time, what is actually happening today is what we actually expected. The talk of Nqakula to become the Speaker of the National Assembly has been going on for some time, ever since she was removed as the Defense Minister. The nomination of the other candidate by the DA is something that we also expected. And this is also informed by the fact that opposition parties, some other members of the civil society are actually not happy with the nomination of Mapisa-Nqakula. So all these things that are actually happening is exactly what we expected. But I think for me also, what will then be a challenge would be to manage the days that are actually coming after this process if Nqakula does win this election. Because the fact of the matter is that the opposition parties and the civil society and some within the ANC have actually made it clear that they do not support the nomination of Nqakula. So it will require a lot of PR exercise on the part of the ANC to convince everyone that they actually came up with the best candidate. Maybe also, even though they might not explain, I see a lot of ANC dynamics at play here, because I think some within the ANC were actually pressurized to come up with the name of Mapisa-Nqakula, compromised as she is.
Yeah, talk to me a bit more about that, the politics inside the ANC. The net result of what President Cyril Ramaphosa did in his cabinet reshuffle is that other than Zweli Mkhize, no one really lost their jobs. People were shifted from one job to another. They may complain about the amount of influence that they have, but in the case of Nosiviwe Mapisa-Nqakula, in my view, to be honest, it actually amounts to a promotion for a person who was a minister who left that position under a cloud of many allegations that had been made against her, particularly around the use of resources of the state, but also that contradiction that played itself out between her and President Ramaphosa on the question of whether or not what we saw in July was an insurrection, an attempt at an insurrection. Just talk to me about the politics that are clearly at play in what President Ramaphosa did in that particular shake-up that ended up not being much of a shake-up, really.
No, well, I think the first point is that it appears as if there is only one, there is one basket that has got certain individuals who are only created to become ministers. And what you then do when you are president, you always play around with these individuals and move them from one place to another. But another aspect for me is that you have got the ANC Women's League that would always want to see themselves being represented in different spheres of government. And when I listen to the nomination process in Parliament, when Minister Lindiwe Zulu stood up to second the nomination, she actually made sentiments like women power. That said to me that maybe there was an inference of the Women's League in the nomination of Mapisa-Nqakula to be the Speaker of the National Assembly. Another aspect as well is that the ANC dynamics are also at play. That whatever decision that is taken within the party, it should always be seen not to be harming the other faction. It should always be done in a manner that would portray an element of unity and ensuring that there is cohesion within the party. And I think at this point, the ANC leadership might also be aware that there is a lot of people that are not happy with the decision that they might have taken, but they find themselves in a corner where they end up having to bring in a compromise candidate. And that, for me, would, as I've indicated, require them to do a lot of explanation to a lot of people so that at the end of the day, Nqakula has to be accepted as a candidate that is suitable for that position. But also, Mr. Simelane, the members of parliament from different political parties, in case Mapisa-Nqakula makes it, would also have to find ways and means to cooperate with her or also make life very difficult for her. So what we need to do for now is to adopt the wait-and-see attitude and see what then actually happens.
In fact, that's a great point that you make there that I would like you to, as our parting shot, expand a bit further on that particular point of the working relationship between the Speaker of the National Assembly and the various political parties in a, at times, fractious, situation in the National Assembly. The fact that there's so much opposition from the opposition benches, but also you're hearing positive talk about Thandi Modise, the role that she played in leading Parliament at the National Assembly, albeit for a short period of time. Also add into that the absence of the EFF from today's proceedings. What should we make of that? What tone is it likely to set, given that, in their statement, the EFF talk about this being President Ramaphosa basically seeking to have his way with who becomes Speaker of the National Assembly and thereby violating the separation of powers doctrine. They've not gone as far as to say he's a constitutional delinquent, but it seems to me it sets up almost an ongoing dispute with Ramaphosa. Could it be by extension with Nosiviwe Mapisa-Nqakula as well?
Well, the statement from the different political parties in Parliament and from other groupings within civil society is very clear. And that is the statement of rejecting the nomination of Mapisa-Nqakula. That is very clear. What is being raised as the concerns from other political parties, and in particular the EFF, is a statement that the ANC and all other South Africans have to take cognizance of. But the unfortunate part of it is that members of parliament and deployment of members in different positions of authority is actually the responsibility of political parties. And you'd also agree with me that because in parliament parties are proportionally represented, obviously the party that has got more numbers would always want to see things go their own way. And the ANC at this point is actually taking advantage of the numbers in parliament. But also at the same time, it should also be seen as a way in which the party political dynamics within the ANC are also at play. There are some within the ANC who are very much supportive of Mapisa-Nqakula, and even if there are some who might not be against this or members of parliament, they have no choice because a decision has to be taken.
Yeah,
what
democratic
this might
democratic
bring to
centralism,
us,
yeah.
Indeed, what this will then have to bring to us is that if elected, Mapisa-Nqakula must actually say to herself, I came into this position with a lot of opposition, and what I need to do as Mapisa-Nqakula is to ensure that I work in the best interest of Parliament and by extension in the interest of all South Africans, and ensure that I actually prove those who are against me wrong.
Right.
But also at the
Levy Ndou.
same time,
Levy Ndou, unfortunately, I have to leave it there, but that's a good point to leave it. It would be refreshing if she actually surprised many of the critics and skeptics. That's political analyst there, Levy Ndou. Thank you for sharing your insights with us here on the Midday View.